that way I'm not all over the map, because I used to row that way. And I'll be honest, like you said, 30 seconds in and I was spent. I had nothing left. But
you can give 60% on the rower and go for a long time. You can also give 100% and go for a very short period of time. It's wildly useful, but if all you ever see are 500-meter efforts or less, you're only going to think one way about it because you're only ever shown one way about it.
Right. So you kind of talked about, as trainers, as CrossFit coaches, and trying to educate people on how to row. What are some of the common, and I'm sure there's probably plenty, common faults that you see, and maybe and I'm sure I know a lot of this is in your videos because I've watched a lot of them, but maybe like a common fault with like maybe an easy suggestion or a cue that maybe somebody would, benefit from. Because I know that when I coach, a lot of times I think I'm providing the most easy cue, and a lot of times it's like, well, touch your toes, and I find them, they're still standing and they're scratching their head, or they're doing something opposite what I would, what I was trying to get them to do.
Well, so here's the tough part, right? As a CrossFit coach, you understand this. People learn in 3 different ways. We're either audio, kinesthetic, or visual learners. And so through podcast, it's tough to get across just one of those. One of the easiest cues that helps people change the way they're perceiving the stroke is that the stroke is a push, not a pull. Stop trying to pull the handle and instead trying to push the machine away from you. When you think push, what do you push with? Your legs.
Push with your feet. Yeah.
Right. When you pull, what do you pull with? Your arms.
Yep.
So the rowing stroke is made up of majority leg push, leg drive. So if you can simply change the way that you perceive the stroke to think, oh, it's a push. Interesting. All right, so let me try and push the machine away from me with my legs instead of pull with the hands. You can have a big impact there. All the other errors come down to a systemic organization issue. People don't understand, if you don't know how to move your body in the correct order of operations, that's where every failure in the stroke comes from. So by clearing up the order of operations, which is push through the legs, open the hips, snap the hands to the body, and then reversing that order, push the hands away, close the hips, then let the knees bend, you can fix almost every issue. And that's where pick drills or pause drills are so effective, is because it simply focuses on each of those errors in the order of operation and allows you as a coach to help somebody fix that. So push, don't pull, that's number one. And focus on your order of operations. Your push through the leg, your swing open of the hips, and the snap of the arms. Don't do them all at the same time when you start. Make sure that you separate them. And then to return, which is called the recovery. Guess why it's called the recovery?
Because there's no energy involved, or shouldn't be really, or energy expenditure.
Yeah, exactly. So during that phase, spend as little energy as possible, and then you just reverse course. In one phase, push the arms. In the second phase, close the hips. And in the third phase, let the knees bend.
Yeah. No, like I said, I try to use those pick drills a lot of times, especially, it's hard sometimes to incorporate, with COVID and having access to equipment, especially while you're trying to coach. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to incorporate them, but I do try to incorporate a lot of those pick drills to really break down the stroke as much as I can, because I think that really people will benefit more from that than they will. All right, let's hop on. Let's do 500 meters on a rower. Let's just do 500 meters or 2 minutes. Well, instead of doing that, why don't we kind of break down the stroke and then maybe think about a 500 meter kind of warm up. One of the things that I see a lot of people do, and I've been guilty of it, I continue to be guilty of it, and I understand it. But I use, as I was saying, I use rowing as a warm up exercise, but also too, it's like I'm not really using a warm up to prepare people to row. So it's one of those things. I'm not maybe not doing those pick drills, and I'm not doing some of the other things to maybe stretch out the posterior chain or do some of those things. So what suggestions would you have to maybe kind of help prepare somebody to row versus using the rower to warm up with?
Yeah. So, okay. Here are kind of two of my favorites. Number one is a catch position, teach and hold. So teach them the catch position. which is essentially a checklist. You can teach them through the checklist. You start at the hands, and then you just work your way through every major joint down the body. So what that would look like if I was teaching somebody that is make sure that you set your hands nice and wide on the handle, keep the hands relaxed. The handle is not touching the palm of your hand. If it's touching the palm of your hand, you're gripping it too tightly. So let it sit more out in the fingertips. Make sure that the elbows are locked out, shoulders are reaching or protracted. And of course, I'm demonstrating this visibly. So for anybody that's listening, please imagine me. By the way, I'm like 240 pounds and just absolutely jacked. So just imagine me sitting there with, looking beautiful in front of you. So elbows extended, shoulders protracted, lats engaged. So that shoulder is dropped, but not retracted. I want that neck and head nice and relaxed and able to move, but neutral. I want the spine neutral. I want the hips positioned behind the shoulders so that the trunk would be at a 1 o'clock or 11, depending on which side of the clock face you're looking at. 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock angle. I want the knees tracking underneath the arms, hips behind the shoulders, heels down. And then you slide them you ask them to slide themselves forward as far as possible without springing an energy leak, meaning one of those positions giving. And the things that give are typically the knees will splay out. So the knees will split instead of staying tracked underneath the elbow, tracked underneath the arms. The hips will try to shift underneath the shoulders instead of being behind the shoulders, so that the trunk, I'm doing this for you guys because you can see me, but using my hand, for everybody listening, I'm using my hand to indicate a 1 o'clock position. So instead you find people will try to get themselves into a 12 o'clock position instead of being at 11, because they think somehow that putting the seat closer to the feet is giving them more effective length. Hint, it's not. So keeping that seat in position, and or the spine will start to round. They'll start to give up that postural endurance to try and get length. So you want to avoid those kind of three major errors: heels lifting, knees splaying out, the spinal position, or that adjust the seat. And then you have them hold that for about a minute and a half, and or up to 2 minutes, and people will hate you. But you know why that's great. Number one, you get super hot because your entire body is having to engage to hold you there. And then what you're asking them to do is, like, every 30 seconds you cue them, like, okay, get a little bit closer, like get a 1/4 inch deeper into the catch. And now another 1/4 inch. Everything is firing, burning, trying to stay locked in and tight in this position, getting as deep as they can. But why that's important is because in the rowing stroke, you pass through the catch every single time. And the catch is the most important part of the stroke. If you can't get the catch right, you cannot take an effective stroke. Coaches just aren't teaching a good catch position because they don't even know what it is. Study the catch, teach them how to hold the catch, then put them in the catch for a prolonged period of time, and put them there long enough. And guess what? They'll figure out how to get into the right catch position every time, because now you've shown them what it is. How can we expect people to take a good stroke if we've never shown them what it looks like? How can I expect you to apply good force to the machine if I've never shown you how to do that?
Right.
I can't. So I love that catch, hold, and teach, because you teach it and then you put them in it, give them 2 minutes, and then rest. And everybody's like going to, like, daggers through you at that point, like fending them off. But they will never forget it. Right? They'll never forget it. And then instantly after that, you give them a short rest. You take them right back into it. You go, okay, this time it's on you. Walk yourself through it. Figure out how to get yourself into that right position. And now they've learned it, because they know that if they haven't, you've got this little tool in your back pocket where, like, no, I can always take you back to the catch hold, and that's not punishment. Like, that's just good education. Right. How do you, I couldn't expect you to deadlift well if I never showed you how to set up on the barbell.
Right. Right. No, I agree with that.
That would be, so how can I, as a coach, justify putting you on the rower if I've never showed you the right positions?
Yeah.
Or pull up. If I've never taught you how to do a proper pull up or push up, all of these things. We as coaches inherently know that we should be teaching people good mechanics on almost everything except for, like, running and rowing.
Yep. I 100% agree with that. A lot of times, rowing is not, people don't really pay much attention. Like you said, it was just a placeholder. It was something to kind of fill the void. Hey, we're going to do this 5-rounder, but every round you're going to do 500 meters or run 400 meters and just do it.
Do whichever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm going to try that. I'll try that on Monday. I'll try the static hold. We'll see.
Yeah. I've done some videos on the catch position. So go watch those videos first so you feel confident.
Right.
Excuse me. So you feel confident teaching it, and you'll be able to relay